We Are Family by LeBron James. Jaden Carr is restless. He's always restless, always anxious and stirring, always unsettled in body and mind. It has been this way all his life, or at least as long as he can remember. But today is different. Today is Jaden's first day of 7th grade at Carter Middle School. And for Jaden, a kid with D1 dreams, NBA fantasies, and a silky smooth jumper he prays will get him there. The first day of school can only mean one thing: hoop group. It's 4:57, not even 5 a.m., but Jaden is wide awake, unable to sleep but pretending to, careful not to let Grams know that he's up before the sun once again. He lies perfectly still. Even a slight shift of the saggy, twin-size mattress that's been pushed into the smallest room of his grandma's two-bedroom house could wake her. The walls are too thin, the bed too old, and the softest creak or groan would send Grams right into Jaden's room. She would stand over him then, hands on hips, tongue tisking behind tight lips, and then she would fuss. She would castigate Jaden for going back on his word, but she would do it in a sort of whisper yell, careful not to wake his mother, sleeping up front on the living room couch. Jaden closed his eyes tight, squeezes them so hard it feels like his head might explode. More than anything to fall back asleep. He wants to empty his mind of the guilt that greets him every morning. No matter the strength of the mental fortress he excretes, how high the walls may stand around the perimeter of his thoughts. The shame of sleeping in a bed when his mother cannot sneaks in the particles of dust. They are invisible until they are not. They are harmless until they're not, until they come in with such force that it becomes hard to breathe. Jaden is only 12, but he is smart enough to know that it isn't really his fault that his mom has to fold her legs into Grammy's tiny love seat each night, making herself into a human pretzel just to sleep. The problem is Jaden's not really sure whose fault it is. Jaden's mom found out she was pregnant right before his dad was supposed to leave on his first tour of duty, but she never told him. She didn't want her boyfriend to worry about his unborn child while trying to keep himself alive in some foreign land. So she decided to carry the weight of the pregnancy alone. She quickly dropped out of law school to take care of Jaden and figured she'd tell Javon when he was going to be a father when he got back to Ohio, once he was home again, safe again. Jaden was only 3 when Javon returned to their tiny apartment. He was too young to remember how his father's face crumpled into confusion, then outrage, when he came face to face with the toddler who looked oddly like him. Jaden didn't remember the yelling and the crying either. He doesn't remember how angry his dad was that his mom had kept such a big secret, or how angry his mom was that his dad could be anything but thrilled to find out that he had a son. That was until Jaden was in the 2nd grade and his mom finally told him what happened, that Javon had disappeared the very next day after meeting his son for the first time. Jaden was still a baby then, but now he understands that when everything started to fall apart, and now that he's older, he knows that he can't blame everything on his dad, no matter how much Grans and his mom try to. His dad might have left, but he wasn't responsible for the whole town changing and leaving so many families in a bind. It wasn't Javon's fault that all but one of the Lorion's plastic plants closed, and that all those health and beauty companies opted to get their spray bottles and lotion pumps on the cheap overseas. Jaden remembers the day Grey Mount, the last factory standing, finally closed its own doors. He remembers how all those hard-working men and women, friends and neighbors, even his own mother, who was working at Grey Mount as a corporate, were suddenly out of jobs. Once Grey Mount closed, hardship settled over the city like a December fog. Like so many other families, Jaden and his mom had learned to make do with a lot less. For them, that meant making themselves at home with Grams, moving into a neighborhood that was long past its best days. They were grateful to have that option, honestly, and soon Graham's house became Jaden's home. It was the only one he'd ever really known. Jaden was still staring at the ceiling above his bed when finally he hears it. Grams is rustling in the kitchen, making her first cup of coffee for the day. He smiles like the buzzer at tip-off. The sound is the permission he has been waiting for. Within minutes, he is dressed in shorts and a t-shirt, and is after a quick dip in the bathroom to brush his teeth and wash his face. Jaden is staring at the entrance to the kitchen, basketball in hand. That sure was fast, Graham said, without even turning away from the coffee pot on the kitchen counter. You make sure you got all the sleep out of your eyes? Yes, ma'am, Jaden said, even as he instructively wipes the corner of his eyes. Just to be sure. He never understood how Grams could see without seeing, how she always knew where Jaden was and what he was doing. They say moms have eyes in the back of the head, but grandmas must have an extra set of eyes completely detached from their bodies, floating through space and hovering above their grandchildren's head, like the thought bubbles you see in comic books. Jaden watches as Grams heaps 2 spoonfuls of sugar into a mug and waits for the green light. Okay, but don't be out too long. Now, get your shorts on and get on back so you can get ready for school. Yes, ma'am. Jaden crosses the small kitchen and gives Grams a quick kiss on the cheek. He then tiptoes through the adjoining living room, past his mother, still sleeping on the couch, and quietly heads out the front door. It's their everyday routine, the conversation between Grams and Jaden. Grams knows how much Jaden loves to play basketball, and how he sees it as his ticket out of Lorraine, and the 1,400 square foot bungalow on the corner of Marsh and 17th Street. During his walking hours after the shame of darkness had passed, any guilt that Jaden carries about his family's circumstances is replaced by responsibility, a responsibility that he believes he can best fulfill on the basketball court. So at the beginning of 6th grade, Jaden and Grams made a deal. Grams would keep an eye out in the early morning so Jaden could hit the blocks while his mother slept, but only if Jaden took care of his other obligations first. He had to have all his homework done the night before, no scrambling to finish math problems or science lessons at the breakfast table. And he would have to get up early, really early. Basketball was fine, good, even, but it was not to get in the way of Jaden's studies or the rest of the household. Grams had made that super clear. The agreement was easy enough for Jaden, since he never slept much anyway. How could he when his mom never really did? How could he rest knowing that her job, working crazy hours for the lawyer with the neon-colored billboard along Route 70, we don't get paid unless you do, barely paid enough money to make ends meet? He couldn't really, so every morning Jaden got up when Grams did, always by 5:30, but often even earlier. And every morning he walked down to the blocks, the neighborhood court where legends were built and cowards were broken. Each day, Jaden's workout was the same: 50 layups from the left and 50 from the right, 100 free throws, 100 jump shots. Is a method to this madness, of course. Jaden is a two-guard, a solid catcher and shooter who can penetrate if he needs to, but prefers to pull up and drain the mid-range bucket. For this reason, he works on his shot over and over again until muscle memory kicks in and he can make the net swish with his eyes closed. Over the summer, Jaden began to finally see the fruits of his labor when he started spending both mornings and afternoons hooping at the blocks. Mom was always busy working, which left Grams in charge. But as long as Jaden was home by dark, Grams didn't care how many hours he spent on the court. Come nightfall, everyone knows that the blocks get sketchy. But at midday, especially when the sun is cooking, the blocks are about the safest place in the world. No one but the most dedicated of ballers are out there, and those who are the guys Jaden loves to play against. A lot of guys Jaden went up against were high schoolers, 16 and 17-year-olds rocking full mustaches and size 14 shoes. Still, Jaden showed up every day, sneakers laced, muscles stretched, and most of the time holding his own. He was smaller and slower than the other guys, but he couldn't speed past them, couldn't shoot over them in man-to-man, but in zone, if he could swivel around a defender and get free, all that he needed was a moment. He knew his shot was money and that he only needed enough time for the pads of his fingers to graze the rock before he let it fly. And in those moments when the net popped as the basketball whipped through and the crowd oohed and awed over the little kid with the big game, Jaden also knew that those before dawn workouts had been worth it. As Jaden takes his first couple of dribbles on the morning of the first day of 7th grade, his chest swells with pride in the memory of his ability to hang with some of the guys from Carter High's varsity team. It's not long, though, before that familiar anxiety takes over, before the imaginary opposition appears on the court, arms outstretched, knees bent, ready to stop Jaden mid-stride. Instantly, Jaden's game turns on. He drives into the lane with his right hand, then crosses to his left, sinking a hook shot just as magical as any of the ones. Magic never hit. Next, he dribbles around the perimeter, imagining a defender with a hand in his face, and leaps off both feet to hit a long two at the top of the key. Jaden can feel the sweat starting to gather on his forehead and across the bridge of his nose. There is no stopping him, especially not now, not this year. Hoop Group is the best youth basketball program in the state, the same program that gave Lorraine's own Kendrick King, Mr. Triple-Double, his start. Jaden's game is nothing like Kendrick's, but he has big respect for him. He also knows that if Kendrick King can go from hoop group all the way to league, Jaden can too. Winded, Jaden bends forward, pulling the hem of his shorts taut over his kneecaps, drawing in 2 long, deep breaths. On his third, as Jaden tries to slow the racing thoughts in his mind, the air catches in his throat, and his heartbeat starts to pick up speed. Jaden had thought he was the only one on the court, but now he gets a glimpse of the far baseline in his peripheral. He realized that he wasn't alone after all. Someone has been standing by, watching.